Senator Lankford.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. Thank you for all the witnesses here as well to be able to talk this through. My state is somewhat unique in this conversation today because if you're in Oklahoma, the eastern side of my state gets a tremendous amount of rain, and the western side of my state is the stopping point on it. And so we face intense droughts in the west, and we're growing tall timber in the east. So we get this. So let me walk through a couple of things that may be unique to my state, but also may translate into other areas. Moving waters by pipeline and actually trying to be able to transition water from east to west at times in some of these border states and areas. Is that being explored at all as options and possibilities? Obviously, there's compacting, there's other things with other states as water continues to be able to move south across the east, but how much is that even being discussed? Student.
We are looking at all options, but certainly being able to utilize what's in basin, what we have within our reservoirs is our priority. A lot of our projects require authorization of Congress with a feasibility study. And so should that be where Congress wants us to go, that's what we're doing. That's what we will do, but we'll say that I'm focused on what we have now and what is in our basins at the moment.
It has been interesting to me that in the past, go back several years ago, we actually had to have an act of Congress to move water from within my state from east to west because it was a different reclamation area. Though it was Oklahoma's water, it wasn't crossing any other state boundary, and it wasn't even violating any of our agreements with the states around us and where the water ends up at it. Just moving it east to west took an act of Congress to be able to move that through reclamation areas. Is that something that needs to stay in place? Does that become a regulatory barrier and an issue that we need to resolve?
I'm happy to continue that conversation, Senator. But Oklahoma is certainly at the heart of the 100th meridian of really seeing where the drought, where the water drought and where the water floods happen.
Yeah, we experienced both on that. Interesting idea from some of the guys in the southwest part of my state that do a lot of irrigation. There's a lot of cotton and other things that are in that area. One of the challenges that we have is power related as well. If we're going to do drip irrigation in some of those areas to reduce the amount of water usage that's there, it's a great idea. It's good use of water, except you also have to have electricity in those areas, in very rural areas, to be able to do this. Is this part of the dialogue Bureau of Reclamation is currently having right now about how we're going to manage water, to also talk about how we're going to manage electricity and power?
Absolutely, and I know you have legislation on that we talked about earlier this month, so happy to continue that conversation.
Be great. Mr. O'Toole, let me ask you, you make a statement in your written document about water management in the West is becoming too inflexible. You made a statement earlier about permitting and regulations, and it's not functioning now, but there's a statement that you made. You said we're facing a regulatory drought as well as a hydrologic drought. Take us a little bit deeper in that, because this seems to be an area that you're focusing in on where you're talking about the bureaucracy is not talking to the bureaucracy and it's locking up and we're not able to resolve the issues there. Can you give me an example of that?
So part of the conflict with agriculture in my world is lack of water, obviously, with the drought and that part. But there's also a conservation fish wildlife piece that's critically important, and many acres have been taken out of production because of ESA issues. For example, the changes in the NEPA process are disturbing to us because we need to get things done. I've said it over and over again, and the process is not as user-friendly as it could be. So the regulatory drought, and I'll use a perfect example, the National Marine Fishery is a duplicative agency that is working sometimes at odds with the Fish and Wildlife Service because they're fish only, when in fact, when you're looking, particularly in today's world where you have birds, you have fish, you have other mammals, you have farmers, and that whole system, when it isn't working smoothly, is taking acres. In fact, it's hundreds of thousands of acres out of production because of this regulatory process that our irrigators have to go through.
So what would need to change to be able to make that work?
Say that again.
What would need to change to be able to make that work better then?
Well, Senator Barrasso is no longer here, but we spent really 3 years working on the ESA process with conservation groups with a real cross-section. We didn't get it done, didn't get it across the line, but we have to have a system that works. And right now we have so much duplication And to some extent, part of what I like to talk about is, are we doing solutions or are we doing agendas? And so we got to figure out what are the solutions and then overcome the agendas. And to some extent, the litigation industry in the West has been very effective in keeping us, for example, cleaning up the forest.
Okay, thank you.